There has been so far a 2-week ceasefire between Iran and the United States. The ceasefire is supposed to end tomorrow. And right now, the Americans have gone to Islamabad to negotiate a possible peace treaty. The Iranians may go, they may not go. We don't know yet. It is entirely possible that the Iranians will go to Islamabad, and it's entirely possible that they will negotiate a ceasefire, a peace treaty that ends the war. But unfortunately, this war will not end. So a lot of people believe that this war, it is just because Donald Trump has decided to go to war with Iran for whatever reason. But that's not true. This war in Iran is actually part of a larger strategic vision that the United States has to maintain its empire. And today I want to explain why that is the case and how this war will progress. But first, I want to look at some recent events from these past 2 weeks. One of the big news these past 2 weeks is that there are a lot of oil refineries that are afire. Okay, they've been alight. So even as the world is being cut off from 20% of energy from the Middle East, there are lots of oil refineries that are being destroyed. So there are a lot of oil refineries that are being destroyed right now. We don't know why this is happening, but there's a lot. Okay, there's already been over 50 oil refineries that have been on fire these past 45 days. Another thing that's been happening is that even though there's a ceasefire in effect, the Americans have imposed a blockade on Iran. And the Americans have escalated the situation by boarding and basically taking over an Iranian ship returning from China, okay? So let's just look at some of the footage. So what happened was that the Iranian ship was returning from China, and the Americans suspected that the ship had important fuel and components for ballistic missiles. The Americans tried to board the ship. The ship would not stop. The Americans fired at the engine, and then they boarded the ship with special forces. Okay? And this is what would be considered an act of piracy. And before the Secretary of War, Peter Hegseth, he before complained that you have to let ships freely navigate in the seas. But he's also said that it's perfectly okay for the Americans to steal ships.
To be clear, threatening to shoot missiles and drones at ships, commercial ships that are lawfully transiting international waters, that is not control. That's piracy. That's terrorism. Certainly Venezuela.
Okay, so you understand. So the fact that Iran has closed off the Strait of Hormuz and threatened to attack ships with drones and ballistic missiles, that is wrong. That is piracy. Okay? Unless the Americans do this.
Venezuela is taking notice of that, and it continues because 2 oil tankers, 2 overnight, were seized by the United States of America, stateless or sanctioned, because the oil blockade, the quarantine of oil out of unsanctioned or stateless, sanctioned or stateless vessels continues. That leverage will continue.
Does that make sense? It is wrong for the world to be pirates and to seize ships, but it's okay for the United States to do this, because the United States is the one that sets the rules for the world. Duh. Okay. So this war is not going well for the United States. This is Rick Scott, and he's a senator from Florida. And he explains that it doesn't really matter if the war is not going well for the United States, because what's happening is that we're hurting China. And that's what's important.
How do you feel like the war in Iran, which is sort of in a ceasefire right now, how do you feel like this is going? Should the U.S. wrap this up, get out of there now, or do you think there's more to do there?
I think Trump's trying to get rid of the nuclear weapons. I don't want to die by a nuclear weapon from Iran. They wanted to kill us. I mean, this appeasement of bullies. I don't know if in your life if that's worked for you guys. It's never worked for me. And so they wanted to kill us. So they're getting close to being in a position to kill us, and they basically have been killing Americans. So I think what Trump did is the right thing. Now, I think he has to get them in a position they don't have the ability to do nuclear weapons or ballistic missiles. I think that's where we have to go. I don't know what the right approach is going to be. I think blocking the Strait of Hormuz is fine from my standpoint. If no oil to China again, and their economy is destroyed, that would be a really wonderful day for me.
Okay, do you guys understand? The Americans may lose this war, but if the end result is that China no longer gets any oil from the Middle East and the economy is destroyed, it's worth it, right? Okay, even now, even at this late stage, we're about 50 days into this war, the Americans have yet to explain why this war started in the first place. So this is Caroline Leavitt. She was asked by a reporter again why this war started, and this is her response.
He said yesterday for the first time that he had to strike Iran because he believes that Iran was going to strike U.S. targets within 7 days. And then he bumped that down later to 3 days. Where is he getting that?
Well, that's not the first time the president has said that he chose to launch Operation Epic Fury because he felt as though Iran was going to strike the United States and our assets in the region first. Again, I addressed this in the last briefing. This was a feeling the president had based on facts provided to him.
So it's a feeling based on facts, okay? That's why Trump started this war. Trump himself has given conflicting signals. He said that this war is going to end soon. He's also said that this war is going to continue, all right? So he changes every day.
News 20 minutes ago, but it seems to be going very well in the Middle East with Iran. A little bit at a time. We're negotiating over the weekend. And as you know, we have the blockade. The blockade's been very successful. And of equal success has been the 5 weeks before the blockade. The combination was pretty lethal, I would say. So we're going to be knowing very shortly.
So he's saying this war is going great. We should have a ceasefire soon, okay? And then maybe an hour later, he's like, oh, I think I need to drop bombs on Iran. So there's a lot of conflicting signals coming from Trump. And what I want to show you today, what I want to argue to you today is that you have to ignore these signals and focus on the larger American strategy in this war. And once we understand the strategy, then easy for us to understand how this war will progress over the next few years, okay? Because this war is not going to end soon. It won't be a few months, it'll probably be a few years. And quite honestly, it may take 10 or 20 years. Okay, so let's look over some more news. As I mentioned previously, oil refineries are getting sabotaged, either by accident or purposefully. What this tells us is that in the past 45 days, there are at least 45 recorded incidents around the world of oil refineries being set on fire. Okay, so Iran was bombed by the Israelis, and then the Israelis responded by attacking Qatar. Russia is being attacked by Ukraine, and the big one is that in Australia, in Geelong, one of the refineries was set on fire, and they claim it was an accident. This is important because Australia is not at war, but Australia needs a lot of oil. Okay, so right now Australia is in a lot of trouble. Romania, Bucharest has been hit. India has been hit. Myanmar has been hit. Okay, so all around the world, there are these fires going on, destroying the world's oil supply. So why is this happening? And who's doing this? We don't know. And quite honestly, we may never know. But to figure out the answer, you always ask yourself, who benefits, right? And you always look at three things: means, motive, and opportunity. And so from this, you could figure out that the majority of these fires are being deliberately set in order to reduce the world's oil supply. And the people who can do this, the people who benefit from doing this, are the Russians or the Americans, okay? One of these two. It's probably both, but we don't know for sure yet. All right. This war, as we discussed previously, is already having a tremendous impact on the world's economy. So sulfur has risen in price by 57%. Sulfur is important for the manufacture of both fertilizers as well as for microchips. Okay? Jet fuel has gone by 52%. So next time you're in the United States, it's going to be a much more expensive ticket. Urea is important for fertilizer, diesel, gasoline, fertilizer. So basically, food and energy, their prices have gone way up. Okay? Donald Trump makes a statement saying that the Iranian flag cargo ship Tosca has been boarded by the Americans. Okay? And Donald Trump continues to threaten the Iranians and say that if you continue to close off the Strait of Hormuz, then we will negotiate with bombs, basically, all right? No more Mr. Nice Guy. And quite honestly, what he's also saying is, we don't really care because we don't need that oil from the Middle East. Also, we can sell our oil to the world, okay? The United States loses nothing. In fact, many ships are headed right now to the US, Texas, Louisiana, Alaska to load up compliments of the IRGC. We just want to be the tough guy. All right, so we're the ones benefiting from this war. So we have nothing to worry about. All right, so another thing that I want you guys to pay attention to is how America is moving towards a war economy. All right, so the Pentagon has been in talks with General Motors and Ford to make munitions, drones, and military equipment. Right? So this is what this last happened in World War II when America moved to war. Their factories that used to make cars were now making tanks. But not only that, but Trump also announced something called the Defense Production Act as of today. And what this does is it basically allows the government to subsidize private corporations in the manufacture of weapons. Okay? So these companies, General Motors, Ford, they can make a lot of money because of this war. That's something to keep in mind. Starting December, Americans aged 18 to 26 will be automatically registered for the draft. Okay? So it's very likely that America will soon introduce a national draft and force young men to go fight in the Middle East. Currently, the Pentagon budget is $1 trillion. Next year, it'll be $1.5 trillion, okay? And we can expect that the year after, it might be $2 trillion. More veterans are now being asked to serve longer, okay? So what we're seeing is that the United States is moving towards a wartime economy. Okay, they're preparing for what we call total war, when an economy moves towards the manufacture of weapons and munitions. All right, another thing that's been happening that you should pay attention to is the fact that there's very little opposition. In fact, there's no opposition to Donald Trump fighting this war in Iran. You would think that the Democrats, his opponents, would use this opportunity to promote anti-war messages or try to stop him from plunging America into another forever war in the Middle East. Instead, the Democrats are doing as much as possible not to do anything. So recently in Congress, they had a vote as to whether or not to restrict Trump's ability to fight this war, okay? And there were 4 Republicans who did not vote, and 1 Republican who voted, we should restrict Trump, okay? And so this vote should have been 214 to 213 in favor of yes, we will restrict Trump's war powers. But then what happened was that one Democrat, just one Democrat, decides, I'm going to switch my vote to no. So now it becomes 214 to 213. Okay, do you understand? Guys, this is all political theater. It's all theater, meaning that it was already prearranged between the Republicans and Democrats that this resolution would fail. In other words, it may be 2 Republicans voted yes, then 2 Democrats would have voted no. If 10 Republicans voted yes, then 10 Democrats would have voted no. You understand? The Democrats are not opposing this war. They're doing as much as possible to support this war.